Let me tell you something most people will never understand. You don't owe anyone your presence. You don't owe anyone an explanation. When you decide to level up, the first move is simple. Ghost everyone. Grind in silence. You're not meant to be available to everyone. The ones calling you selfish, broke, lazy, mediocre. And guess what? They want you down with them. They don't want you locked in, dialed in, chasing greatness. They want you at the same parties, with the same stories, talking about the same dreams you'll never touch because you're too busy entertaining weakness. Disappearing isn't weakness, it's strategy. Most people think when you go silent, when you cut people off or stop showing up, that something's wrong with you. They think you're hiding or losing, but the truth is, stepping away is one of the smartest moves you can make when you're serious about getting ahead. It's not about being antisocial. It's not about running from the world. It's about stepping away from the noise so you can finally hear yourself think. You can't build something great when everyone's in your ear telling you what they think you should do, pulling you in 10 different directions, distracting you with their small talk and small mindset. When you're surrounded by people all the time, you absorb their energy, their opinions, their doubts. Even if you don't realize it, it starts affecting your decisions. You start questioning yourself, second guessing the grind. That's why disappearing isn't weakness, it's a power move. When you disappear, you take back control. You stop explaining yourself. You stop giving energy to things that don't grow you. You get laser focused. Every second you would have spent replying to people, explaining your silence, posting for validation, you put that into your craft, into your body, into your mind, into your business, into the version of yourself you're trying to build. While they're out there watching stories, liking photos, gossiping, you're putting in reps, reading, working, earning. That kind of isolation is misunderstood by average people, but the ones who win, they get it. They know that real progress requires disappearing. Real transformation happens behind closed doors. You also learn who's real when you vanish. People love access. They love knowing what you're up to, feeling like they're in on your journey. But when you cut that off, most vanish too. It's fine. Let them. You don't need cheerleaders. You don't need constant connection. The truth is, most people don't want you to grow too much. They want you just ahead of failure, not ahead of them. So when you go quiet, when you stop sharing, when you stop being available, you break their illusion. They think you're slipping, but what they don't realize is that you're sharpening the blade. You're working in silence because when you return, it's not to talk, it's to win. You don't owe the world updates. You don't need to justify your focus. You don't need to post your progress. The strategy is simple. Disappear so you can reappear with leverage. The leverage of discipline, the leverage of results, the leverage of someone who didn't ask for permission or approval, someone who sacrificed noise for progress. It's not about cutting off the world forever. It's about pausing the world's influence long enough to build something solid without interference. So when you go ghost, it's not hiding, it's hunting, it's preparing, it's strengthening, it's building something the world isn't ready for. And when the time comes to step back into the spotlight, you won't need to say anything. Your presence will speak, your results will speak. That's the whole point. Disappearing isn't weakness. It's one of the strongest, most calculated decisions you can make when you're chasing greatness. Silence is power. In a world obsessed with attention, where everyone is shouting their goals, flashing their fake wins, and trying to prove they're doing something big, the real killers move in silence. You don't hear them coming because they're too focused on building. Talking doesn't get the job done. Announcing your plans doesn't make them real. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Every second spent explaining what you're going to do is a second you could have used actually doing it. Real power isn't loud, it's quiet, disciplined, and locked in. People think if you don't speak about your goals, you don't have any, that if you don't show your work, you're not doing anything. But that's a weak mindset. The strongest people, the ones who are really making moves, understand that silence protects progress. When no one knows what you're up to, they can't interfere. They can't slow you down with opinions, doubts, or fake support. They can't study your next step. They can't copy your blueprint. Silence keeps your mission safe from noise, negativity, and unnecessary pressure. The grind doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be done. Every hour you work in silence stacks up. Every task you complete with no audience watching adds up. Over time, that quiet grind becomes a loud result. When you stay silent, you train your mind to become disciplined. You start focusing on results, not recognition. You stop craving claps and likes, and you start chasing progress that actually matters. You stop talking about how hard you're working and start showing it through outcomes. While others are out there announcing every small step, hoping for attention, you're building something too real to be ignored. Because people who always talk about their hustle usually aren't hustling that hard. They're trying to look busy instead of being productive. That's why silence separates the serious from the talkers. If you're really putting in the work, you don't have time to talk about it all day. You're too focused on the next level. Silence also builds a mental edge. When you don't let the world into your process, you don't feel the need to prove anything. That removes the pressure. You become immune to outside opinions. You don't care what people think because they don't even know what you're doing. That's where peace and power meet. You're not grinding for applause. You're grinding because the vision is bigger than the noise. And when you're working in silence, your time and energy go entirely into execution. You're not explaining why you didn't go out. You're not justifying why you're unavailable. You're just locked in, getting it done, stacking wins that only you know about. Eventually, people start asking questions. They wonder how you leveled up so fast. They're shocked when you show up a different person, physically stronger, mentally sharper, financially ahead. They think it happened overnight, but it didn't. It was built in the dark. It was built during those silent seasons when no one was clapping, no one was checking in, and no one even noticed you were gone. And that's the power of silence. It doesn't make noise, it makes impact. Validation is a trap. The moment you start chasing approval from others, you give away control over your life. You let the opinions of people who aren't doing anything for you shape your path. That's how most people live. They grind just enough to get attention, to get a few compliments, a few likes, a few claps. But none of that means anything. External validation is short-term. It fades fast. And worse, it becomes a habit. You start needing it. You start depending on it. Every move you make becomes about getting noticed instead of getting results. That's how you stay average. People waste so much time trying to look successful instead of actually becoming successful. They want everyone to see them working. They post every step, every workout, every meal, every little task, hoping someone will say, "Good job." They care more about how their grind looks than what it produces. But the truth is, real work doesn't need an audience. The most powerful moves are made when nobody's watching. That's when it's raw. That's when it's real. You don't need to be seen. You need to be effective. The grind is not a show. It's not a performance. It's war. And wars aren't fought in the spotlight. They're fought in the trenches, where there's no camera, no likes, no applause. Validation is a drug. The more you get, the more you want. And like every drug, it kills your strength over time. You start losing the ability to move without feedback. You hesitate. You wonder what people will think. You start shaping your actions around approval instead of purpose. That's weakness. You'll never dominate anything if your confidence is built on other people's reactions. The strongest mindset is this: I don't need anyone to believe in me. I'll prove it in silence. When you chase validation, you waste energy. You explain your plans to people who don't care. You look for praise from people who haven't built anything. You hope strangers online will recognize your effort, but none of that builds anything. It just keeps you dependent, distracted, and stuck. Every time you post for applause, every time you tell someone your goals just to impress them, you're letting them inside your process. And now their judgment has weight. Now their opinion can throw you off. That's dangerous. That's how you lose focus. That's how you fall off your path. You don't need to tell people you're grinding. Let the results speak. Let the transformation do the talking. When you finally level up, when you come back with results they can't ignore, that's all the validation you need. And even then, it shouldn't matter, because real ones don't care if people clap or stay silent. They're too busy building. They're too busy becoming undeniable. They don't chase praise, they chase progress. That's the mindset that wins. Ignore the need for validation. Starve the ego. Stay focused. Stay quiet. Do the work. Let them notice when it's too late to compete with you. Hustle in the shadows, shine in the light. That's how winners move. You don't announce every step. You don't broadcast your grind. You keep your head down, you stay low, and you work like no one is watching, because most of the time, no one is. And that's the point. The real work, the real transformation, the real progress, it all happens when nobody sees it. That's the part people don't understand. They think success is something you pose, something you show off every step of the way. But the truth is, the more you expose your process, the more you open yourself to distractions, doubts, and delays. So you keep it hidden. You put the time in behind closed doors. You bleed, sweat, and suffer in silence. And then when it's time, when the work is undeniable, you show up and shut everything down. The shadows are where your skills get sharpened, where your mindset gets stronger, where your habits are built. The hustle done in private is the difference between people who talk about it and people who actually become it. Everyone wants the spotlight. Everyone wants attention, but most haven't earned it. You don't deserve to shine if you haven't suffered in the dark. That's what makes the shine mean something. It's not just the result. It's the silence behind it, the grind that no one clapped for, the discipline no one saw, the sacrifices no one thanked you for. That's what gives weight to your wins. If you're really serious, you stop trying to be seen and start trying to be effective. You don't need a crowd to work hard. You don't need validation to stay disciplined. You need vision. You need purpose. You need to remember why you started. And that reminder doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. When you hustle in the shadows, you train your mind to stay focused without applause. You learn to keep pushing when no one is watching, when no one is asking how you're doing, when no one cares what you're building. That's where character is built. That's where you separate yourself. Shine in the light isn't about showing off. It's about showing up prepared. It's about walking into a room and letting your results speak so loud that you don't need to say anything. The glow hits different when it's built in silence. The confidence feels different when it's backed by months or years of private struggle. When you finally step into the light, it's not a show. It's a statement, a reminder that while they were watching each other, scrolling, gossiping, and waiting for shortcuts, you were working. You were locked in. You were doing the things no one else wanted to do. This is how real winners operate. They understand that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. That the grind isn't a brand, it's a lifestyle. You stay in the shadows long enough to become dangerous. Then, when the time is right, you emerge. Not to speak, not to explain, but to win. Because the light doesn't make you, the shadow did. The world respects results, not effort. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. You can try your hardest, work long hours, talk about how committed you are, but none of it matters if you have nothing to show for it. The world doesn't hand out rewards for almost. It doesn't clap for your struggle. It doesn't care about how tired you are. People care about what you produce. They respect what you've built. They judge you by what you've done, not what you say you're doing. That's why effort alone isn't enough. You have to become the kind of person who turns effort into outcomes. Trying isn't special. Everyone tries. Winners finish. Winners deliver. Winners show proof. Most people are stuck in the trap of thinking being busy means being successful. They run around doing 1,000 things, hoping people notice how hard they're working. But nobody's paying attention to your effort unless it creates something powerful. Effort is invisible unless it leads to impact. Nobody cares how many hours you spent in the gym if your body still looks the same. Nobody cares how many nights you stayed up grinding if you're still broke. Nobody's handing out trophies for being tired. That's harsh, but it's reality. You're not rewarded for intention. You're rewarded for execution. This is why you have to stop telling people how hard you're working and start showing them what you've built. Stop announcing every little step. Stop needing recognition for your grind. Put all that energy into the result. That's the only thing that matters. If your business isn't growing, work harder. If your skills aren't sharp, train more. If you're not getting results, it's not enough to say you're trying. You have to do better. That's the mindset. That's how you separate yourself. You don't want people to see you working hard. You want them to see what your hard work created. When you focus on results, everything changes. Your standards rise. You stop accepting excuses. You stop patting yourself on the back for halfway progress. You start holding yourself accountable. You look at your life like a scoreboard. Did I win or did I lose? Did I move forward or did I stay the same? That's how real growth happens. Through honesty, through pressure, through facing the truth about where you are and what you've actually done. There's no hiding in results. They speak for themselves. They either scream success or expose your laziness. Effort is where you start. Results are where you prove it. You don't need to scream about how bad you want it. You don't need to beg for people to believe in you. You need to grind until you've got something they can't ignore. That's how respect is earned. That's how people take you seriously. Nobody cares how many times you almost made it. They care when you actually do. And when you do, you don't need to explain anything. The results speak louder than your voice ever could. Revenge isn't about words. It's not about shouting back, proving a point in an argument, or begging for people to understand what they lost. Revenge is results. That's the highest, most brutal form of payback. When people counted you out, laughed at your dreams, underestimated you, left you, disrespected you, don't respond with emotion, respond with transformation. That hits harder than anything you could ever say. Because when you level up in silence and come back untouchable, you destroy every lie they told, every doubt they had, and every version of you they thought they knew. You don't need to seek revenge, you become it. Most people waste their energy trying to prove people wrong through arguments, through petty moves, through trying to be seen. But that's weak. That's emotional. It doesn't change anything. You want to hit hard? Disappear. Go all in on yourself. Go quiet. Go dark. And focus on becoming the person they never thought you could be. Let them think you gave up. Let them think they broke you. Let them laugh. Because when you come back stronger, richer, sharper, unstoppable, it won't just surprise them, it'll silence them. That's the type of revenge that changes everything. Not because you got loud, but because you got better. You use every doubt as fuel. Every betrayal becomes energy. Every time someone turned their back on you, laughed at you, left you behind, that becomes your reason to win. Not to hurt them, but to evolve. Your success becomes the story they can't escape. They'll have to watch. They'll have to see what they threw away, what they didn't believe in, what they tried to keep small. And the worst part for them, you won't say a word. No, I told you so. No explanation. No message. Just results. Just silence and domination. You don't need to seek attention from those who once ignored you. You don't need to win them back. You don't need to be liked. You need to become undeniable. So undeniable that they can't even look at you without being reminded that they lost. That's how you win. Not by talking, not by clapping back, but by becoming so powerful, so evolved, so out of reach that you become the exact opposite of what they expected. You weren't supposed to make it, you weren't supposed to rise, but you did, and now your life is proof that you didn't need them. You needed silence, focus, and the will to grind while nobody believed in you. That's real revenge. It's silent, it's slow, it's painful, but it lasts forever. It's the type of revenge that leaves no arguments, no debate, no doubt. When they see who you became, they'll realize they helped create it. Every bit of disrespect, every ounce of rejection, every laugh, every rumor, they all built the monster you became. And now, all they can do is watch. Watch what you've done. Watch what they couldn't stop. Watch who you are now and understand that they don't get a piece of it. Not now, not ever. Ghost, everyone. Grind in silence. That's not just a phrase. It's a lifestyle. It's the mindset of those who are done playing small, done seeking approval, done explaining themselves. You don't need to be seen. You don't need to be heard. You need to build. Build when no one's watching. Build when no one believes. Build when all you have is your vision and your discipline. Let the world talk. Let them guess. But let them doubt. Because while they're watching each other, wasting time making noise, you're stacking wins in silence. You're growing, you're evolving. And when it's time to step out of the shadows, you won't need applause, you'll have results. That's how legends are made. Quietly, relentlessly, without warning. Let your silence shape your power. Let your grind define your legacy.